Welcome to a foreigner in the Philippines. Just dropped the phone again there, so I thought I'd start again. I'm just looking at my book of quotations by some very, very clever people, and I wanted to read this one to you because it seems to sum up the whole thing about. Remember that song that that somebody wrote and sang called "Take This Job and Shove It." And that told the story about a guy who eventually just got so tired of being pushed on at work and full of just a life full of crap, that he just said, take that job and shove it. It's a very popular song. But listen to this, and this really sums up. This is by Boris Pasternak. Boris Pasternak. The great majority of us are required to live a life of constant, systematic duplicity. Your health is bound to be affected if, day after day, you say the opposite of what you feel, if you grovel before what you dislike, and rejoice at what brings you nothing but misfortune. Boy, doesn't that... I've done a few jobs in my life, and that I felt like that too. I remember talking to a friend of mine who had started to try to get practical. He was a musician and he had taken a plumbing course, and now he was able to go out and do odd jobbing plumbing, and he was able to subsidize a job of being a musician, which is not always so secure. So it was a wise move. But he made a comment, and it's a quote worth remembering. I said to him how, because I used to do some carpentry work, and if I got plumbing, I would call my friend in, and he would come in, so we'd get time to chat. Two musicians doing side work in other fields. So there were some fun conversations, and one of the things that he said which resonated with me was, he said, I enjoy myself most of the time, but sometimes a job can get to be such a pain and so much trouble, I would pay to get off it. I would pay to be able to walk away. And I don't know, I think that so many people do jobs which they would pay to get out of. Believe it or not, I can remember when I was a pro musician and I was talking to, actually I was just listening to some really well-placed session musicians. Let me explain. In music, session players are the cream. They're the ones that are doing the best work, the best possible rate. They make 3 times what anybody would make in doing a 3-hour gig. They make 3 or 4 times that, and especially if they become known, they can even charge more of a celebrity rate. So I remember this guy, and he was talking about the stress of, he was a lead trumpet player, and lead trumpet players may be required to read at sight a part which requires an incredible upper range. So all of that stratospheric trumpet playing that you hear has been produced by a human being who goes along there with all the fears of wondering if he's going to be able to make it, because nobody has cast iron confidence. It just doesn't exist. Everybody goes in handling fear to some extent. And he admitted to one of his colleagues who were in the same range of players, and he said, sometimes I would hope that I would have a crash in my car. I would hope that I would wreck my car on the way to the gig, on the way to the session, so that I would have a good reason for not showing up. Boy, isn't that a sobering thought, that someone would have played so well in one session and hit a really great day where they were able to hit the high notes without faltering. And then they establish for themselves a cross to bear, and it can be a cross to bear. There was one famous, extremely lovable guy, a lead trumpet player in the UK around the time that I was playing as a young man, and the pressure became so great because he started playing at an incredible register. There was a guy called Maynard Ferguson. Maynard Ferguson had an unbelievable superhuman range, and in a way it set the standard, it set the bar very high for lead trumpet players who were doing session work the world over. And this particular guy, who I actually met and played on a session with, and was an extremely likable person. And sadly, sometime after, months after I heard that he had actually committed suicide. And there are many people who have done that, done jobs which they've had to grovel to keep, listening to people who are putting them down, having to button up and put up, suck it up, whatever you want to call it, but living lives where they're taking more crap than they should ever be taking. Especially really talented people have to do this, and it's a poor thing. My idol as a trombone player, the god of trombone playing for me was J.J. Johnson, and J.J. Johnson was the icon of the trombone. He was the one. He was just the one. It was so fluid. It was like he was talking through the instrument, and he was doing it at a time when nobody else really was doing it how he did it. He went through a period where, because he was black, he struggled and was an inspector in a factory. That was the earliest indication that I had when I was reading his life story. That at one time, yeah, he'd had to do side work in order to live. Then he became famous as a West Coast jazz player, and he formed a group of two trombones, how unlikely is that, called J.J. and K, and they did some incredible music. There was a record called J.J. and K plus 6, and they put together all of the finest trombone players. I don't know, Frank Rossellino, Jimmy Cleveland, a few other great players that if you're into music you may well know. If you're into the jazz scene you may well know. And that he did an arrangement of Surrey with a Fringe on Top, which was so incredible. Even people who are not really interested in music said, "Wow, listen to this." He later committed suicide. JJ committed suicide. You can go on YouTube, type in JJ Johnson, and you will get memorial after memorial, tribute after tribute paid from people like me who played trombone and revered this guy as a god. So, yeah, we're all of us, to some degree, taking a load of crap. I'm not talking about my channel now. I'm talking about generally as people. We're taking much more crap than we ever should, and we're not speaking our opinion. We're not saying how we feel. We're not expressing it. It's being withheld, and it doesn't do us any good. So it requires a great deal of courage to be able to speak out, and sometimes you have to walk away from a job. I mean, that's for sure. I learned something very important once. I had a pianist working for me in a band that I was running in a little club in London, in Mayfair, and I had a terrific pianist, and he suddenly turned up one day and said, I'm going to be leaving, so I'm giving you 2 weeks notice so that you can find somebody to take my place. And I remember saying, I was so sad to be losing such a great player. He went on to play for many top names. I think he actually joined, soon after he left me, he joined a band called Colosseum. But Don Airy his name was, and type in Don Airy into YouTube and you will get probably thousands of links about Don Airy, great player. But he told me something that really I learned a lot from. Thanks, Don. We're talking about 100 years ago now, by the way. But he told me, I said, well, where are you going? What are you going to do? He said, well, I haven't got anything. I said, well, why don't you just stay with me until you get an offer from somebody else? No, he said, it doesn't work like that. You have to leave, you have to create a vacuum, and into the vacuum will come an opportunity. And I learned a lot from that. So in other words, sometimes you have to leap into nothingness in order to create somethingness. So that's my little trip for today. Thanks for looking in. I appreciate that you're here. Bye for now.